Hey guys, what's up? It's Colin from CC Mega Productions, and today I have another sweet tutorial for you guys. It's a muzzle flash, and we're going to be using After Effects. And what's great about this tutorial is all the elements I used for the video I am giving to you, including the footage, the muzzle flash, the smoke, the shell, all that great stuff. So the link for that will be in the description. It's Mediafire, and it's right here. Just click the link. Click download. It'll give you this zip file, extract it, and you'll have the muzzle flashes, the shells, the sound effects, and the footage that I used, just in case you can't shoot your own footage, you just wanted to try it out. And I'll go ahead and open After Effects, and here's my finished product. There's a slide kicking back, and a shell popping out, ejecting, and a pretty nice muzzle flash and smoke. So as you can see, as I scrub through here, we got the brightness on my face, and the camera's moving a little bit, so we're going to have to do a little motion tracking, and I know you guys like to see that because most of you don't know how to do that. And so you can see the smoke looks pretty nice. I filmed all the stuff myself. It's pre-keyed. It's free. I'm just giving you a link to it. So there's the final footage. Here's the rifle shell that I've created in case you want to do a rifle muzzle flash, and it's pre-keyed, so you can see scrubbing through, it just rotates in one point of space. And same for the pistol shell, it's pre-keyed, and that's what we're going to be using because I have a pistol. And here's the muzzle flash side, and there's the smoke, and it is pre-keyed as well, but we're still going to set the blending mode to screen just to make it look a little nicer. And here's the front muzzle flash, just in case you want to do a front muzzle flash. And once again, all pre-keyed and pretty sweet. So let's get started. I'll start by you can start by opening up the folder. I shouldn't have done that. Opening up the muzzle flash pack, dragging the footage into After Effects. I already have all the muzzle flashes and shells and stuff just for your sake of time. And drag it into new comp. That little box right there will create a new composition with your footage, the exact time length, and with all the frame size dimensions of your footage. So as you can see, starting off, just me kicking back a gun. And let's go ahead and motion track this so we can build upon that. And first off, create a null object by clicking in this gray area and selecting new null object, or just delete that. Or you can go up here and click layer, new, null object. It's all the same, doesn't really matter, just up to you. Now I'll go into my tracker after selecting my layer, the footage, and if you don't see this tracker right here, you might see it down here, right there. But I don't really like things being right there because I like my time layer being pretty long. And if you don't see that, you can go to Window, Tracker. It is not there, and it should pop up. Usually it'll be down here in this area. So while your layer is selected, click Track Motion, and my footage rotates a little bit, so I'll hit Rotation. And you want to drag your points over to a point of contrast. I like these black dots in these pieces of wood over here because they provide a pretty nice area of contrast. Next, you want to select the outer box and make it a little bigger just by dragging one of the corners. And this will allow more space for After Effects to track, and it'll give you a better track. So also make the inside ones a tiny bit bigger, but if you make the inside ones giant, it'll take like 2 seconds of frame to motion track. Alright, so go ahead and hit play to track, and as you can see, it's doing a pretty good job of staying on those points, not really moving around too much. And if yours is, you can stop it, drag it back, maybe change something up a little bit, and then just hit track forward again, and it'll just retrack over everything that you just did. So just let it track and let After Effects do its thing. Shouldn't take too long unless you've got a long track. And it's done. So I have a null 3 right here, and so click Edit Target and click null 3 or your null object if it's not already selected, and then click Apply X and Y. So then you can see this red box over here will just stay in place, and so now anything that we parent to the null object will move with the null object and be motion tracked to the scene. So let's go ahead and import the muzzle flash side. As you can see, it's pre-keyed here. I gave you a couple frames just in case you want them. Then just drag the endpoint down, and I shoot the gun around. Let's go right there. Just drag the muzzle flash over, then drag it over on the screen, and you can position it to about where you like, and then click hit toggle switch modes down here if you don't see your modes, and then click here and then go up to here and click screen. And the reason I do this is because it just kind of blends it more with the environment and the lighting that it gives. You can click, you can just see it as I click normal again, it looks a little harsh and the edges don't really blend very well. And so when you click screen, everything looks pretty good. You can also click add, but I'm more of a screen fan. So now you can see it looks already pretty decent, just because the smoke is really what sells a great muzzle flash. And so, but you can see that the smoke is kind of moving around without really being a part of the environment. So what we're going to do is grab the pick whip tool and drag it onto the null object, and that'll just parent this and give it all the motion from the null object. Or you can click the drop down menu and click null 3, whatever you want to do. It's all the same, but just I kind of like the pick whip tool a little bit more. So now you can see the smoke does not fly off into space randomly. It sticks to the environment and looks like it's there. Alright, next what we're going to do is create the slide moving back. So what we're going to do is select your footage and then hit Control D on a PC or Command D on a Mac. I'm on PC, so Control D for me. And then you want to drag your endpoint. Oh, never mind. Right click the layer. Actually, first I'll rename this to slide just so you don't get confused. It actually helps a lot and helps you keep more organized. So right click the slide layer and click time, freeze frame, and that'll make everything on that layer one frame. So now we can drag this down just to one frame. I'll actually make it 2 frames and one right here. I'll tell you why in a second. So right here, go ahead and hit G on your keyboard for the pen tool, or just click the pen tool up there, and make a mask around the gun. Kind of try to get a little bit of the contour of the gun, and there you go. So right now we'll hit the drop down menu and go into transform, and then just go ahead and select all these by clicking over here and just dragging down, and hit a keyframe for all the stopwatches. So just go ahead and drag it where it should about be, and go ahead and click F on your keyboard, which will pull up your feather, and you can feather it out a tiny bit, and that'll make it look a little bit better. And so the position right now is right here, and then go 1 frame forward, and then if you enable motion blur in your comp and enable motion blur for the slide layer, you can drag it back, and you can see that it starts to have a motion blur. So if you drag it back way back here, the motion blur is extreme, but where you want to drag it, it'll just give you around the right amount of motion blur. And since we don't want it right here, we can just go ahead and drag this layer here. I just do that so it's the motion blur on the slide is pretty accurate to what it would be like in real life. So next, hit W on your keyboard to rotate it, because it looks a little off to me, and then drag it back down, and that looks pretty good. Maybe up a little bit more. So there's that slide, and next we'll do the shell. So the pistol shell, just drag her right in on top, and go ahead and parent it to the null 3, and just find a good spot to you that looks like it would be a good spot to start this. I'll start right there. So Alt left bracket to trim that down, and you can rotate it with the clicking W to rotate it, and then you can hold shift and you can scale proportionally if you drag down on the edge of the clip. So just scale it down a little bit. Go ahead and make it a 3D layer so we can do some 3D transformations. Put it around where it would be if it was popping out of the gun. Probably around right there. And we're also going to do what we did on the slide, so we're going to drag it over here. We're going to enable the motion blur, and then put it like over here a little bit, and then we want to hit transform, and then hit keyframes for all these, and drag them over to the first frame. So now if you move this right here, it already starts to have a little bit of motion blur. You can see it. Looks pretty good. And so now you can go ahead and drag it back, since you don't need that first frame. So there's the muzzle flash. You can rotate it. Not muzzle flash, shell. Apologize. There's the shell with motion blur. And now just go, I don't know, about 10 frames or so, and drag it down off the, not 10 frames, but drag it down off the viewing area, and you're going to say that looks retarded. But what you're going to do is you're going to drag these little curves like this, these little dots, so it looks like it's kind of popping out of the gun. And it's easier when you just have 2 frames for a shell, because if you have more than one, you'll start fidgeting with it and nothing will look right. So I'll go ahead and pre-render and see what this looks like. As you can see, that's a little too fast. Just kind of shoot straight down. So if you drag this keyframe over, it will make that fall a little bit slower. So now let's take a look and see how that looks. That looks pretty good. You can see it's boom. Yeah, that looks decent enough for now. We might mess with it a little bit later. Alright, so next let's add the brightness on my face by once again duplicating your footage. Alt left bracket to trim the clip, and make it 2 frames so we can make the glow drop out. So go ahead and set the blending mode on. I'll rename this to brightness. And what I like to do to keep me even more organized is click over here, and you can change the color to yellow. So that just kind of makes you think, oh, yellow is brightness. So go ahead and change the blending mode on this to add, and if you don't see it, toggle switch modes again and click add, and this will brighten up the areas that you want bright. So if you go into the pen tool again by clicking G or clicking over here, you can mask around areas that you think would be lightened by the subject. And so I'll probably pick the gun in my hands and my face. Doesn't have to be too good of a mask because you're going to feather it out quite a bit. And then I'll create one more down here on my chest area. So then hit F on your keyboard to feather, and then on mask 1, which is my face, just feather it out to where it looks. I mean, you can feather it way out, but just feather out where you get rid of the harsh edges and looks what you want it to look like, and then do the same for the second one. And the bigger areas you have, usually the more you want to feather. That's just a general guideline. So my shirt, I should probably feather quite a bit. So now you can see as I scrub through, the brightness is on my face while I shoot. but it's still the same brightness right here in the middle. So you can go ahead and hit T to bring up your opacity, hit the stopwatch over here to set the keyframe, and then go to the last frame and click 0. So now in the middle it'll be 50%, so it'll kind of be like boom, really bright, and then kind of fade off. I learned this from Freddie W, so pretty good way of doing it. So what also I'm going to do is set the blending mode on the pistol on the slide to add, because it needs to be bright too, and if you just mask out the brightness layer, then it won't mask out the slide. So there is the slide going back, the muzzle flash, and the shell. So next what we're going to do is add some more, like, I don't know really what to call it, but it'll enhance the muzzle flash a little bit. So if you go into muzzle flash and you hit Control D to duplicate it, or Command D, and then shrink it down to 1 frame by dragging the endpoint. So it gives you a little bit more of a beefy muzzle flash, and then you can go into your Effects and Presets tab and type in Tint, drag it over onto your muzzle flash you just created, and pick an orangey color around there, and then do the same thing for here, and that just kind of makes it look a little bit more like a flame, I guess. You can also change the amount you want to tint to how orange you want it to look. But if you make it really orange, what you also want to do is you want to create a new layer, a new solid layer, and I'll make it orange, just like the muzzle flash. And oops, sorry. And then hit Alt left bracket to trim it, and Alt right bracket to 2 frames. And do the same thing for the opacity that you did for the other brightness. So now, if you set this to add, you can mask around the same areas and that you did for the face, and it'll give it more of an orangey tint because you kind of just set the flares to be orangey. So I'll feather this one out, and you don't have to do this. I think it makes it look a tiny bit better. This might be a little much on my face. I'll actually go ahead and set the opacity at the beginning down to like 70. Let's do 50. Alright, that looks pretty good. So now it kind of looks more orangey glow to my face, and the muzzle flash looks a little bit more fiery. You can also change it you could really, let's say you're doing a laser gun and you want it to be green, you can make it green, but for the sake of this, or you can do red to make it look more fiery, but I think orange usually looks a little bit better than red. But you can also play with this. I'll play with it a little bit and drag it down. And you can duplicate this, duplicate the layer by pressing Control D again. You can make it look even more fiery. Alright, that is pretty much all I have for you guys. Don't forget the MediaFire link is down in the description, and download that puppy. I know it'll help you out. It's got a bunch of pre-keyed free stuff. But the last thing we're going to do is we're just going to add in some sound effects, which is pretty easy. Go into the pack and go to sound effects, pistols. Click all the pistols in here except the reload and trigger click, and drag them in, and then drag them into your composition. You just drag them to the first frame because I already have them pre-rendered out. So now if you pre-render, you can watch your beautiful muzzle flash. So, alright, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Hope you enjoyed the stock footage. Took me a while to create. I guess I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.